Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Man, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. It has been a minute since I've done a video, a couple months. In fact, I did miss you guys while I was gone. I just, was taking care of some stuff, man. So, getting some things in order. Up in my chess game a little bit. I'm kind of up there now, a little bit. Hopefully get my chess title pretty soon. But anyways, man. I did go ahead and go back to January 31st. And I got a game from Title Tuesday. And this is between Lucas Van Foreest, who is Jordan Van Foreest's brother, and Wesley. So, as you guys know, of course. So for all my people coming from the Philippines, I would say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking makaibigan. Masaya ko makita kang muli. It's very nice to see you guys again. Anybody who is coming from the Netherlands, I will say hello. And thank you. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, man. But you know what? If you guys are ready to go, like I'm ready to go, let's take a look, see what we got for this game, homie. So we got the move E4, E5, and then queen to G4. And the craziest thing about queen to G4 is it is the novelty of the game. Queen to G4 in tournament play or even online in the database that I looked at, there are 0 games which feature this. Basically, the reason why is because it is a really dubious move. There are so many different ways that you can attack this queen. This is actually like one of the worst squares to put it on. There's knight to F6. There's any D move. There's knight to C6. Threatening the fact that the queen has left over here, threatening something like this. So, I mean, pretty much you have anything at your disposal. But what Lucas is trying to do here is this is a 3-minute plus 1 second increment game. So he is trying to kind of throw Wesley So off a little bit. Because if you can make your opponent think, then you kind of, have a little bit of an advantage, even though you're playing some, kind of dubious moves. But we do see knight going to F6. I mean, this is one of the by far best moves to play because, I mean, you're just getting a tempo on the queen. So the queen does go back to G3. We got knight to C6. Knight goes to C3, and then we have the move G6. And as you can see, Wesley So is just developing his pieces. And that's actually the best thing you want to do when somebody starts to play kamikaze stuff with their queen and, flying things everywhere, is you want to still adhere to opening principles. Do not let what that person is doing throw you off of what you're supposed to be doing, because then you're going to not be castling and you're going to be, and that's exactly what the opponent wants. So we do have G6. We got bishop to C4. And in this actual position, I mean, things are fairly even. What you actually want to do as black here is go bishop to E7 and immediate castles. But, I mean, this queen being here does kind of get a little something to white. But, I mean, it's not really too much that you need to worry about. But after we see this position here, we do see bishop to D7, bishop to G7. We do see the move D3. We got castles by black. We got knight G to E2. And I mean, the one thing I can say about this position is, I mean, it is actually fairly equal. I mean, black definitely has the advantage. White has wasted a couple of moves with their queen. But, I mean, white is not completely lost by any means. So we do see the move D6. We got castles by white. Knight goes down to A5. I mean, I will go as far as to say this bishop is a little bit annoying on this diagonal. Just simply because, I mean, this is like that Fisher stuff that you see. This bishop is kind of eyeballing his king through this pawn. So, there can be some tactics that come up. So this is a very logical move. Even though it might not make a lot of sense to some because knight to A5, you're putting your knight on the rim. But we do see bishop going back to B3. And then the knight does go to H5. And basically, Wesley just says, man, I'm just going to attack all your pieces with putting knights on the rim. This doesn't come back to bite Wesley, but, I mean, it does kind of take a little bit of time away from developing your pieces and trying to get take advantage of the advantage that you have. So we do see queen up to G5. We got queen taking G5. Bishop taking G5, and what white has successfully done is it has, even though you made a lot of queen moves, you've been able to, develop your bishop, with one single move as opposed to a bunch of different moves. So we do see H6. The bishop goes back to E3. We got the move C6. And as you guys always see in my videos, I mean, C6 is a very logical move because, I mean, there is a nice square in B5 or on D5, and we just kind of want to just, mitigate that threat as much as possible. So we do see the move F4, and I mean, if you're a white and you're looking at this position, I mean, you are slightly, I mean, black has their knights on the rim, but you are slightly passive in your position. I mean, you kind of have a little bit of space here, but I mean, your pieces aren't like in black's position like you'd like. You have to kind of try to open it up somewhere. And you do need a pawn break. So F4 is that perfect pawn break that you need. We do see the move B6. We got H3. You know, number one is creating some lift for the king over on this side. You're also wanting to, you know, prevent this bishop coming to G4. You're wanting to try to get the bishop as killed down as possible. So we do see pawn taking F4, knight taking F4, knight taking F4, bishop taking F4. And for those of you guys that play the D4 as white and get into Benoni type situations, I mean, this kind of rings a bell to you. You are kind of putting a little bit of pressure on this pawn here. The knight does take B3, pawn takes B3, and then we do see a rook going over to D8, just defending the pawn. We do see the bishop going back down to E3, and this is being a little bit sneaky. I mean, because this knight, this rook is completely undefended. We do have bishop taking B6 on tap, so we kind of have to do something with that. So black just goes bishop to B7, which is highly logical anyway. We do see rook up to A2, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really not feeling the move rook to A2. I'm not honestly sure what it does. And this is actually going to come into play later in the video. You're going to be like, yeah, rook to A2, it didn't quite do what you wanted it to do. I'm not sure what Van Foreest was thinking in this position. I'm not sure like what he was thinking, you know, what he was wanting to try to do with this rook. But, I mean, it just looks kind of like weird placement. I'll mention that a little bit later on. We do see the move D5. Now, something I want to kind of go back and show you guys, right? So, like I said, white wants to make this pawn break, right? But if you're thinking, if you're black, you're going through the moves and stuff, right? What is black wanting to try to do? Black wants to actually have their own, you know, pawn break. And where is that pawn break? That pawn break is on D5, right? But the problem is right now, you got the pawn, you got the knight, you got this bishop, all, you know, protecting that. So what you need to do is you need to reduce the protection and then build up your own type of situation. So that is what you see black do. And this is like some nice technique by Wesley. You do see knight taking B3, pawn taking B3, rook going over to D8, bishop down to E3. You have bishop down to B7, rook to A2, and then now what have you done? You have made it possible now for you to push the move D5, and that is absolutely what Wesley so does. Not only are you pushing D5, but you are creating another threat, and I'll mention that in a second. Pawn takes D5, pawn takes D5, and what do we have that could be coming up? You guessed it, a fork. So we have this knight and this bishop on, you know, separated by one file. And I mean, D4 is coming, so you kind of have to do something about that. So we got bishop down to F2. We got D4. Knight goes down to B1. We see the move A6. Knight goes to D2. We got a rook over, a rook A to C8. And you actually have an interesting maneuver to protect in this situation. But we do see Van Foreest go rook to C1. But if you did want to go knight to C4, you probably were calculating and thinking, well, what about, I mean, you could just push B5, right? Well, after the move B5, you do have the move knight to A3, and this is an interesting maneuver. It was also possible in this position here, and just immediately going up to A3, and then you didn't have to really worry about any of that other stuff. It's a much better position for white to be in, but like I said, we did see this position here, and we actually see rook over to C1, and this actually allows black to start kind of getting rolling a little bit. We do see the move H5, and this is a very interesting move. There's a very legitimate point behind it. We do see bishop to H4, and this really doesn't inconvenience the rook at all because the rook really wants to be on this completely open file anyway. So that was kind of an artificial threat. We do see knight to C4. So clearly, I mean, we do have this C2 pawn protected, but maybe we, you know, we're thinking about this knight to A3 maneuver. Also, if black is not careful, knight to D6 is going to come, and that might be kind of lights out. So we do see a rook down to E2, and then we do see knight to D6. So like I said before, you do not have like the whole entire fork, but I mean, you kind of got the rook and the bishop forked. So we have actually reached a position. If you don't want to pause the game, there is actually only two moves that black can play in this position to have a chance. If you don't find any of these two moves, it's pretty drawn, or you've actually given white the advantage. So if you want to pause the video and see what two moves I'm talking about, go ahead and do so. Alrighty, man. So if you are black, the move is not to move either one of these two pieces at all. It might sound kind of weird because you're like, isn't that just drop the bishop? No, it doesn't. You have actually a lot of threats on the board if you are black. The move that we actually saw in the game, which was one of the correct moves, was bishop to h6. And this is inconveniencing this rook just a little bit. And you really don't have a whole lot of options. You really don't want to move it because this rook is going to come down here. And I mean, you're looking at kind of lights out. The other move, which was actually very, very, very strong as well, is just rook taking a g2 with check. And you also don't have a whole lot of options in this position. You definitely don't want to go king to h1. So you would be moving king down to f1. And I mean, you still have bishop to h6. You got the rook being able to come down here as well. And after this bishop comes here, you do have bishop to e3, which is what we actually see taking advantage of in the game. And I mean, it's pretty nasty. After we see knight to d6, like I said, bishop did go to h6. We do see the rook going to e1. We actually really do, if we're white, want to get some rooks off the board. Because if we allow this second rook to come down, it is super lights out. We do see bishop to e3 with check. We got the king sliding over to f1. The only reason why this is not going to be mate is because of this bishop. So this bishop actually kind of does save the game. But we do see rook e taking c2. We got the knight taking b7. And black is actually currently down a piece, but they have such a strong attack going. And this is one of the major moves that you have to find with black is the move g5. And I mean, you're really kind of pushing the situation. You are at the moment protecting this pawn, this square, but you don't want to go here and then the pawn goes and then you have to go back here and then you're just going to be getting mated. So white is in an actually very dangerous position. We do see the knight down to d6, desperately really trying to find these in-between moves. We got rook 8 to c6. We are not in a hurry if we're black. The bishop does take g5. Now you have gotten in a position where you have to give the piece back. Bishop does take g5. We got knight down to e4. The bishop goes back to e3, most perfect square ever. The rook goes up to e2. We got rook down to c1 with check. And you know what? I was talking about this rook, homie. Look at this rook over here. It's like, hey, put me in, coach. I can play. Yeah, literally. Yeah, it's not serving. If it had been left on a1, it would actually be kind of participating in this attack. You know, the defense of the king, but it's really not. And both players actually have a very little amount of time at this particular situation. So, you know, they're kind of repeating here in a second. Okay, so I spoke a little bit too soon. We do see the move f5, and this is just like really, really mean. The knight goes up to f6 with check, and we do have the ability to take it right here if we want to, because the bishop is holding that rook on c1. But the king just comes up to f7. We got knight taking h5. Rook 1 goes to c2, and it's now that we start to repeat. And I believe Wesley So is doing this. At the moment, Wesley So has 11 seconds, and you know, Foreest has only 2 seconds. So, I mean, I think Wesley's just wanting to kind of gain some time. He's absolutely not going to draw this position now. So we do see the repeating of moves, and then we do vary with the move f4. And, I mean, it's just really dangerous in this particular situation. So we do see rook taking c2, rook taking c2, and then the rook does take on a6. And black has a very, very super juicy dominant bishop in the center of the board. And you really can't trade it any kind of way, because if you do take, you got either of these pawns taking, and you have a really severe pawn wedge in the middle of the board. It's crazy. So the king does go down to g6. We see the move g4. We got the move f3. And something that's interesting, it's like, bro, you can't really move anywhere. And you're kind of looking at a rook to c1 checkmate in this position, so you don't really want that to be the case. So we do see rook taking b6 with check. The king goes down to g5. You really don't have any other good checks, but I mean, for good measure, let's go ahead and throw h4 in, which, as you guys can see, this absolutely does not work, because I mean, either pawn can be taken, I mean, really at white's next earliest convenience. The king does take h4, and it is in this position that Wesley So actually wins on time. Foreest, like I said, he only has 2 seconds. So he literally just let his last 2 seconds run, so you can't even like say he let his flag drop. But I mean, this is just, I mean, the king is going to be like coming in here like this. And I mean, right now, you really don't have any way to prevent this mate at all. I mean, literally, what the computer suggests is the only thing that you can do is go like this. But all that does is prevent checkmate for 1 move. Rook takes, and then literally no matter what you do, it's mating on the next move. So, yep, that is not a nice thing. And so I'm not sure when I'll make my next video, but I appreciate everybody that came by and watched my video today. Maraming salamat, aking makaibigan. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for anybody coming from the Netherlands. And I'll see you guys next time.